Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Online Motivation Show with me, Hilman going on solo for today. Alright, Mona is spending time with her family. So, I'm going to talk today about stress. This is a very large topic to talk about, and sometimes it can be very subjective. At the same time, it can be situational, right? On what situations are you off in terms of your stress, or on what level is your stress. So we're going to talk in depth regarding several factors that constitute the stress. At the same time, I'm going to share with you certain tips to overcome stress, right? First and foremost, right, the question is always, what is stress? Okay, rationally and logically, stress just means that, is a part of you that accumulates, right? I believe in every part of our lives is always stressful, alright? I cannot deny it because I went through it myself, and there's a lot of my peers went through it, alright? Various generations go through it. So stress is part of our culture. Just like stereotypes, stress is contagious, alright? This time, when we talk about stress, alright, in relations to our everyday life, basically the rational explanation is when things just accumulate and pressure starts to accumulate up, and it makes it hard for you to actually keep on par or in touch with yourself, and therefore hence you also find it difficult to manage those stress factors. These factors actually accumulates into your brain, and therefore it actually controls the way you actually move. Alright, the way you, without you realizing it, when people actually see someone who is stressful, they actually shows a bit of character, a character that is not fun to be with, that is not fun to be around with. Alright, when you actually, when I meet with people who are stressful and when they require me to help them with something, and the way they explain to them, I can actually tell that they are stressful through their explanation, through their intonation of their voices. Alright, and then when we actually tell them to calm down, because don't be stressed, don't get pressured, they will be like, hey, I'm not stressed, I'm not pressured, no, I just want you to help me do this. That, my friends, is stress. Alright, you can deny it no matter what, right? It shows through your actions, through your movement, through your body language, and of course, your voice can never lie when you are stressed. Okay, so think about it, alright, I'm not going to go into the scientific explanation of how stress develops and stuff like that, but because, alright, let's face it, I'm not a doctor, alright, but basically, stress is just the way of how you manage with your, yourself. Some people can be stressful in terms of financially. Most of us are in that predicament sometimes, right? Or maybe I said most of the time. Some people are stressful because this momentum of stress goes in every age group, right? Perhaps when we are toddlers, right, the way we actually show our distress and frustrations is when we don't get what we want, alright? That's why we seek for attention. Alright, that is a bit of stress, right? A bit of showing signs of, distress as a toddler. But we would normally, as adults, when we see that coming, we always relate to that. Oh, he just wants attention. He just wants people to, have more favorism for him. Okay, I believe that is part of stress as well. But because toddlers, or maybe this little cute kids, they have a way of showing how stress is all about. Okay, now we go into student life. Okay, in student life is of course stressful. What is stressful in student life? As adults, we often tell students that your only responsibility in life right now is to study hard. Okay, sounds very simple to us adults because that's the only responsibility that we are expecting from a teenager or from a student. But when we think about it, when I go back into my teenage years, into my student life, I realize one thing. Yes, we might not have that responsibility, but studying is just so hard. It's just so hard and it's so not fun to do. Alright, and the stereotype is the pressure, another pressure, okay, we call it peer pressure, or what socially people say. People who are good in studies are geeks and nerds and stuff like that. We don't see things, whatever things that don't appear cool to us, just don't represent anything, and therefore, it develops another type of stress. But it's not in the academic stress, but in the social stress, because you don't want to be labeled as a geek or as a nerd or whatever it is that is so uncool. So now we go back into academic. Another stress actually develops, which is the stress of preparing yourself for an examination. When I was in high school, alright, there are a lot of examinations that we sit, not just the normal mid-year and end-of-year examinations, but we talk about the big exam, right? The important exam, like N-level, O-levels, A-levels, right? These are important examinations. So now my tips to students when I gave them lectures regarding this thing, alright, is not to study hard but study smart. It's easier said than done, alright? But when you get everything, right, you get these things into practice, it just builds up the momentum, and you will find it much more easier to adapt to the style of studying that I often relate to my students. Okay, it is actually something that I learned from lots of other motivational speakers as well. So is today when I am in the seat to become a motivational speaker, I just related back to you what I learned in my years of pursuing my studies. Alright? Okay, to start off with, alright, let's now talk about stress in a teenage lifestyle, alright, in a teenage life. Alright, the biggest stress, right now, let's us focus more on educational stress first. Alright, what are your expectations? I can feel that, in teenage life, why we are so vulnerable and we are so fragile and we make very inappropriate or undecisive decisions is because of how we handle and manage with our stress. Okay, some kids who appear to be cool and calm and steady and those calm and collected type of kid that doesn't seem to worry about anything, they seem cool, alright, and they seem calm, they seem so perfect. It's a good trait to be cool and calm, but as much as we have to understand that in our life there's always priorities, and when it comes to priorities, it's also part and parcel of people who wants to be happy and people who wants to also be successful. In my lectures, right, of people, you want people to be happy, and in my successful tips of becoming a successful individual, I always stress on a lot about priorities. And in order to achieve those priorities, I always told my students, as well as the people that I gave the talks to, that we have to prioritize our time for something. Okay, certain things have to be put, first before anything else. So, when it comes to being a student, what is your main priority? Right, your parents will have an expectations of you. Alright, expectations like want you to do well for your examination. That's always the expectation when you are in that teenagehood. Alright, something that you cannot run off with, right? Something that you cannot escape, because that's the key to your future. That's what they always said. You have to study hard. It's the key to your future. We hear that a lot of times until we get bored and then we get sick of it, and then sometimes we just turn off. Right? That's the biggest mistake. When you turn it off, then you win. When in 10 years later, you might just realize that, I should have listened to them. I should have worked hard. I experienced that momentum before. I experienced that moments in my life that I should have become an A-grade student. So things might not be so screw up right now. Okay, but now that you know about priority, I give you an insight about what priority is. Okay, to have an examination right now is most of the time, our parents will always, the moment you are sitting for an important examination and you are not studying, they will always nag at you. Hey, aren't you studying? Right, is your O-level examinations coming? Aren't you studying? And whenever you do something else other than studying, you always get that pressure. You always get that stress. Alright, this can be unhealthy, this can be healthy, but it depends on how you prioritize yourself. If I can relive that teenage lifestyle, that teenagehood of mine, whenever my parents actually nag at me, hey, aren't you studying right now? I will take it as something positive, something healthy, because she wants me to study, so that I will study for my examination, and that's it. Because bear in mind, when you talk about responsibility as a teenager, this is your only responsibility, alright? And this might be the only thing that you can show to your parents, that you appreciate their sacrifice for you. You know, I mean, our parents sacrifice for us heaps of times, and it's totally unconditional, you know, when it comes to, you know, the way they sacrifice things for us. But one thing's for sure, I always tell them, you know, I might not be good in studies, my academics, but I'm good in something else. And then they will say to me, oh, but I want you to pass. So they know what is supposedly is your priority. Your priority is to pass your exams, do well for your exams, and then move on. That's your priority. But we as teenagers, we tend to think that, you know, we know so much better about ourselves that we fail to see what is the main objective, our main priority as a teenager. So once you get your priority right, basically the risk of having high level of stress is lower. Okay, assuming now that you understand what's your priority. Okay, I'm sitting for an important exam this year and I'm going to study hard. Okay, now this goes to the next stage of how you handle stress in terms of how you study. Okay, my tips to students is always like, okay, you see a lot of people would say, study long hours, that's how you study hard. Yes, it's a fact, alright? Of course, the more you study, the more you get, you know, a lot of knowledge absorbed to your brain and stuff like that. Okay, it sounds very logical and very rational, and sometimes for some people it sounds very easy to do. Alright, but it doesn't sound easy for me. I can never study for like 9-10 hours straight. Alright, even though I open my book for 10 hours, and I assume that, I might just be assuming that I'm studying for 10 hours because I'm opening a book, and then the actual fact is, when I'm being honest with myself, maybe out of that 10 hours, only 1 hour is that, only basically 1 hour is the time that I spend attentively on my books, on my studies, and the other 9 hours is basically, you know, I might just be, my mind will be dwelling somewhere else and stuff like that. So this is something to, you know, bear in mind. So when people talk about, you know, studying long hours, what they actually meant is, yes, you have a table with all your books around, you study. And then when you study, let's say you study for 1 whole hour. Let's go for 1 hour, alright? It's full on studying, no distraction, no mobile phones, no Facebook or WhatsApp or Instagram, whatever it is, no sort of communication with the outside world except the books that you are actually studying. Alright, after that 1 hour of solid studying, I say you deserve a well-deserved break for half an hour. Start doing that, and then half an hour you can eat maybe a slice of bread, you can have some, you can fix something for yourself, because you know you need to always replenish yourself as well. You know, I mean, without energy, you know, you don't have energy to study. So, okay, fix something for yourself. You know, have a dessert or whatever it is. After half an hour, start back that regime of 1 hour full on study. Okay, my advice to student is, when you are taking your break, right, try not to take your break longer than what you actually study. So let's say you study for 1 full hour of hardcore studying. Alright, do not take your break for 2 hours, and then you study again for 1 hour, and then you take a break for 3 hours. So one of the things that I told them to, you know, reject, or I told them to avoid, is actually to avoid television. Okay, I'm going to talk about avoiding television soon after this break. Alright, I hope to see you guys. Stay tuned to how we reject television, alright, and how it actually affects our way of learning things. Alright, see you, catch you, stay tuned with what's going up, coming up next. Alright, it's going to be some cool tips about studying as a teenager as we go on to handling stress. Stay tuned.